Hey guys, it is the J and J Hockey Podcast. I'm Joshua and he's Josiah. So today we will be talking wildcard spots, who's going to get them, who's going to miss, and why. We're also going to be talking about which goalie we trust most in the postseason and why. And we will also talk about some other stuff. So let's hop right into it. Starting with the wildcard spot. So I will go first. And I will start with the West. So in the West, teams that are contending currently are the Minnesota Wild, the Vancouver Canucks, the Nashville Predators, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Arizona Coyotes. So I think out of these 5 teams, I think Minnesota, Winnipeg, and Arizona will miss. And Vancouver and Nashville will make it in. This might be a bit of a shock to some listeners due to the atrocious goaltending not atrocious, but not great goaltending that both teams have received, especially of late. Demko has been decent for Vancouver so far. He just hasn't been lights out that the Canucks have needed a little bit. It's kind of been more of a team thing. You can't really blame Demko, but in Nashville, Rennie and Saros have not been great at all this year. They have a -4 goal differential, which is pretty hard to do when you're contending for a playoff spot.
Yeah, because the Nashville Predators, both Rene and Saros, and let's not forget that Rene won the Vezina Trophy just 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's true, but that was 2 years ago. That's we're at the now, and that year in the playoffs, he also didn't do that well. So
that is true.
He has not proven to be a playoff goalie yet in his career, which is why I never said that they're gonna get far. I just said that I think that they'll make it. One of the reasons why. Sorry, go on.
And they're sort of like their team, Granlund has not been the point player he was in Minnesota. That's been a bit of a blow. He's playing on their 4th line. And their D has been okay. Yoshi's definitely scored a lot. Whether or not he's been responsible defensively, I'm not so sure, but their D is probably the only thing that's okay, and then they're able to score enough goals that they're able to win some games. So we'll see what happens there.
Okay, yeah, so you're definitely right on that one. Shh. Anyway, yeah, I still stand behind my opinion of Vancouver and Nashville. One of the reasons why is that Vancouver and Nashville have a game in hand on all of the other 3 contenders. For Minnesota, even though Minnesota is ahead of all of the other contenders in the playoffs for a playoff spot, I think the reason they're going to miss is they weren't doing too hot all year. They were kind of contending with Chicago for not doing well or for last in the Central. But, the thing is that they've been, in the last 10 games, they've won 7 and only lost 3. So that's their peak. They've needed this hot streak. It's gotten them 14 points, so up from 63 to 77. It may be more by the time you hear this, but now it's 77. And I just think that they've hit their peak, and so now they're slowly going to gradually fall down. And Vancouver and Nashville both have games in hand on them. And they're both only 1 point back, so it's not like they hold a great lead right here. And
question?
Yeah.
Are you choosing Vancouver because you're biased? Because I know you're a diehard Canucks fan.
Are you really bringing this up?
I'm just asking a question.
Okay, fine. No, I'm not bringing this up due to any sort of bias.
All right.
So there are many different reasons why the Canucks, I think, are going to make the playoffs. So anyway, Vancouver anyway. So that's why I think Minnesota will miss. Arizona, I think they're just too far out of reach. Just a little bit, like nothing major, but they've played the same amount of games as everyone else. Actually, they like Nashville and Vancouver have a game in hand on them. Same with Winnipeg when I talk about them later. But Arizona, the difference with Arizona is that Arizona is 3 points behind Minnesota and a win behind the other three contenders. If Winnipeg beats Arizona tonight, Winnipeg moves into a playoff spot, and Arizona is kind of a little not doing too hot lately.
Yeah, it kind of like puts them away, right?
No, it doesn't put them away because then they're still within a win's reach of Vancouver and Nashville, and only 3 points out of Minnesota. But it really doesn't help their chances. So the game tonight is pretty important because if they do win it, they tie with Winnipeg, Nashville, and Vancouver. Even though after tonight, Nashville and Vancouver will have 2 games in hand on Winnipeg and Arizona because they'll be at the 70-game mark. Unless Nashville or Minnesota are playing, because I know that Vancouver's not.
Yeah.
But it's just so tight right now. But I think Nashville's offense, while Granlund has not been the answer they needed for it, unfortunately, I think it can come through. Arvidsson has still been solid. Philip Forsberg has been injured for a lot of the year, so that's also come into play.
But maybe if Forsberg comes back, he'll score another lacrosse style goal because he did that against Edmonton.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe they'll meet in the conference finals and then he'll do it again. But, I just think Nashville, especially with their D too, because Josi and Ellis are still there. Both of them can provide some offense. Ekholm is great defensively, the kind of guy that you would love to have in the postseason. And it doesn't have the depth that it used to because it's lost Subban and some other guys in the past few years, but it's still a really solid decor. So yeah, I just think that's why that they can do it this year. And then with Vancouver, I'll say this. While I do think Markstrom being injured is the reason why Vancouver is slowing down a little bit here in the past week or so since Markstrom got injured, but I don't think Demko has been a problem. I think the team has been sluggish. Maybe they got ahead of themselves like Tampa Bay did last year, knowing that they were solid in a playoff spot, but suddenly they've fallen back. I think the problem has also been offense too. This offense, as good as Toffoli has been doing, has not produced as well lately. So I think once they get Besser back, that might help. Even though Besser hasn't been doing oh my goodness, amazing this year, I think he could definitely provide an offensive pop once he comes back. And then, not only that, Besser is more likely to score when he comes back because if you think about it, he'll have to be competing with Toffoli for that first-line job back because Toffoli has been doing great in it. And he'll also be having to compete with the power play unit job because Toffoli has also taken his job in the first unit and has looked great there. So, Besser will have to come back and he'll have to prove that he deserves to be in that spot again. So that means that he'll have to score.
Yeah,
so, you call that bias, Josiah?
No, but Besser's always kind of been plagued by injuries. His rookie year, has he ever played a full season?
This is only his 3rd year.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
yeah,
fourth if you have the time where he played 9 games.
But that doesn't. I'm not counting
that.
That.
Doesn't count.
He wasn't injured, so yeah, you're right. But that's not necessarily his fault, and that has nothing to do with this conversation at all.
Fair enough. But, do you think that the Canucks will make the playoffs? I could see that. You're right. But you're right. They kind of have fallen off. They were in the Pacific Division League for a couple of months or something. It was kind of crazy. And I'm an Oilers fan. Because the Oilers had been in the league previous to that. Now they're in second behind Vegas. But we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the Pacific later on in the podcast, so stay tuned for that. Moving on to the East, the contenders for the East wildcard spots are Columbus, Carolina, the two New York teams, Islanders and Rangers, and Florida, and then just like Chicago, Montreal can make it if they make it on a really, really hot streak. like really good hot streak.
They played 70 games. Like, they would literally have to win all 12 of their games.
Josiah.
They still might not even make it.
No, if they won the last 12 games, that gets them 24 points. That gets them 95 points. Makes the playoffs, dude. But that's not going to happen. So we're going to pretend that, yeah. Okay, so I think this is kind of a boring choice, but I think Columbus and Carolina are taking these spots. They're in these spots currently, but I still think that they're going to keep them. I think if any outsider team was going to steal the spot, I think the Rangers, actually. And I'll tell you why here. So I'll start with why the Rangers have actually a better shot than I originally thought at this. First of all, Islanders are the only team that's stopping them from getting to the wildcard spot. That and, Carolina and Columbus already occupying it. But New York's the only one ahead of them in the wildcard race with Carolina and Columbus. So here's the thing. Islanders have lost the last 6 games. So they're not doing too hot right now. They do have a game in hand on the Rangers, and the Rangers did lose their last game. I mean, once this is posted, stats will probably be different. Yeah, we get it. But right now, currently, at this time, Rangers have lost the last game, and the Islanders are winless in the last 6. So Rangers are 3 points back of the Islanders right now, and the Islanders have a game in hand. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen. This is probably why I don't see the Rangers actually doing it ahead of Carolina or Columbus. But they could. This is not too. They're not too far back. They're only 3 points back of New York and of the other New York team, and for that matter, Carolina only has 79 points. So
yeah,
the Rangers, like, they could do it. It's possible. Panarin has been amazing this year. Like
underline that 6 times. Amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like top 10 in scoring. Hart Trophy, kind of dark horse candidate if the Rangers make it, of course. And not only that, in the past 3 games, what did you tell me? Zibanejad has 7 goals.
Yeah, 7 goals in the last 3 games, and he had a 5-goal night against. I don't remember, but they only won 6-5 in overtime. I don't want to say it was the Islanders, but I don't think it was. They lost 6-5 in overtime. Won 6-5 in overtime. So Zibanejad's got to be thinking, guys, can I have a little help here?
Yeah. Yeah,
but I just scored 5 goals and we barely won that.
And
come on.
That's another reason too why I think Zibanejad might not be as much of a factor. Because, really the 7 goals in the past 3 games is mostly due to his 5 goals in that one game. So really it's more of an outlier. But all it shows to me is that he's on a bit of a hot streak. And if he could keep that going for even 1 or 2 more games, 1 or 2 more games equals 1 or 2 more victories for the Rangers, which inches them closer to that wildcard spot that they want. And Igor Sjorkin, or it's hard to say his name, has been pretty good this year. And I don't know how well he'll handle the playoffs, but we're talking about who will make it to the playoffs, not who's going to survive in it.
Yeah, but with the Rangers, their goaltending is real solid because Lundqvist has actually been knocked down to numbers. His numbers have not been terrible this year. He's got a 9.
He's not a starter. He's not. You still don't want him starting though.
No, his numbers are not great, but they're not terrible. So that just kind of shows you that they've got depth on their goaltending. And say one of their goaltenders was to get injured, which actually did happen. But you just got that depth, and you've really got 3 goaltenders, whereas some teams don't even have 2 goaltenders. So that gives you, and then
that's true. But
has been. I mean, Adam Fox has been a great rookie defenseman. You've got Jacob Trouba. He's been doing solid. I don't know,
Yeah.
And there's another D-man. I can't think of his name at the moment. But there's another D-man that's pretty solid. That's
Kevin Shattenkirk.
What?
Anyway,
What did you say?
so yeah, the thing with Lundqvist with me is that the only reason he's backing up over Alexander Georgiev is because of his playoff experience. No, nothing else. Because you don't want Georgiev or whatever the guy's name is to be giving advice on the playoffs and stuff, because he's only 24, and he's never been to the playoffs either. But other than that, I think he'll handle a backup role much better. He's been a backup his entire NHL career. Meanwhile, Lundqvist has been a starter for the past 17 years,
Something like that.
So but putting all that aside, this team can score. They have 228 goals, which is second in terms of the wild card race behind Florida, and that's by 1 goal. But they also let in less goals than Florida does. So yeah, that's why I think the Rangers could make it, but I just don't think they will due to lack of a true goalie that knows how to handle play this kind of stretch run, because Lundqvist has. I guess he hasn't truly done this before yet, because the Rangers, when they made the playoffs, were always solidly in the playoffs. They weren't going for a wild card or anything. But Lundqvist just has that experience, but he's not that great of a goalie anymore. And so Sorokin is only in his rookie year, so he wouldn't know how to handle it either. Okay, anyway. So, yeah, that's why I think they'll miss. And then also lack of a true number 1 D-man.
Yeah, Adam Fox could definitely be that in the next couple of years, but
we're not talking about the next couple of years.
This is his rookie year.
Right. So I think that this is why I think Carolina and Columbus will make it, moving over to them. I think Carolina will probably pass Columbus here. That's mostly due to Carolina having 3 games in hand on Columbus, and only being 2 points back. Columbus has 81 points as we stand right now, and Carolina's won their last 2 games. So there's that. Columbus, the thing with them is, of course, their goaltending. We've thought this since the start of the year when Bobrovsky left. Actually, since Bobrovsky left, period. But Elvis has been solid this year. Nothing wrong with him. But it's the same with it's a similar situation with Igor Serzukin, except in New York they have that veteran presence that they can rely on should they need to. Meanwhile, Columbus does not have that. Joonas Korpisalo is not that.
Joonas Korpisalo is also he maybe has a bit more experience than Elvis, but he's still not a veteran.
So yeah, and another thing is that they can't score. They only have 180 goals, which is 37 behind Carolina, and Carolina only has given up 4 more this year, which is why I think Carolina will pass. Which is another reason why I think Carolina will pass them. But the strength of this team is undoubtedly their offense.
Their offense.
Well, defense, not offense.
I was going to say, defensively, I think they've got the 5th best goals against average in the league, and they're negative in terms of.
They're negative. They got a -7 in goal differential.
Yeah, that's just sad that you have one of the best goals against in the league, and you're -7 in your goal differential. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it definitely is. So. Yeah, with Columbus, it's just Seth Jones and Zach Werenski. While Jan don't have a ton of playoff experience, we know that they're a great D pair. Werenski with that black eye in that Pittsburgh series when he got that puck in the face, and he tried to come back with that. John Tortorella quoted as saying he's got balls as big as a building for that. So he obviously has proved that he's dedicated to this team in the past. Not that that's really not that we need that confirmation, or us anyway, the team probably does. But I just think they'll make it. Ryan Murray's another guy too who can play D. He's not amazing like on offense or anything. He doesn't get a lot of points, but he makes up with it with other ways. So I think
Columbus knows they've got a good, solid number 1 D in Seth Jones.
I just think like Columbus will be passed due to Carolina having a better decor, better offense, and about equal goaltending. Also, more games in hand. So that's why I think they'll take that first wildcard spot.
About Columbus, the problem with Columbus is, I guess it's not a problem, but they've lost 15 games in overtime.
Josiah.
15 OT losses.
Josiah, you will have your chance to talk. I just have to talk about Carolina, and then you have your chance. So, Carolina, oh man, that top line is lightning. Svechnikov, Teravainen, and Aho have been, they've been a little too reliant on them, I think. What do they have, 30% of the team's goals? Since they got together or something?
I don't even know.
Something crazy like that. Their decor is amazing. With Slavin, Pesci will be back by then, I think. Who else do they have on their team? I'm drawing a blank for some reason right now.
Hamilton.
Dougie Hamilton will be back. Who did they acquire at the deadline again? They got Trocheck on offense, so that's another big guy.
Yeah, that's great for them. That helps them not to rely on their top 3.
Yeah. So, I'll quickly check here, because for some reason we're both drawing a blank. So, Hurricanes team.
I know, this is why you totally should listen to our podcast. We know so much about hockey that we can't even name more defensemen.
Haha, very funny.
I don't know, it's just... Yeah, anyways, Columbus has 15 OT losses, so that's kind of just a little bit of a... If they had won a couple more of those games, that would have given them a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm looking here quickly, they got Jake Bean, Joel Edmondson, Hayden Fleury, Jake Gardner, Dougie Hamilton, Brent Pesci, Brady Sheck was the guy they got, and Sammy Vatanen. So, their 6 guys will probably be Vatanen, Scheich, who they got from the Rangers at the deadline, Pesci, Hamilton, Gardner, and Edmondson. And then they got Jake Bean and Hayden Fleury, who have been waiting to play since forever on this team. And then also Trevor Van Riemsdyk. So, I think personally the Hurricanes have the deepest decor in the league.
Yeah, because, the 2 demon you just mentioned, those guys are not even... They're not terrible demon. They're solid demon, and the fact that they're not even playing is, this team has awesome defense.
At least half the teams in the league would be playing them.
Yes, so maybe Carolina this summer wants to trade away a couple of those demons, because they could sacrifice a couple demons to try to get a true number 1 goaltender, but we'll see what they want to do.
Yep, that's true. Slavin could probably bring back at least close to a number 1 goalie. So, yeah, those are my picks. So, just one more time, I think in the East, Carolina will make it in the first wildcard spot, Columbus in the second one, and if either of them miss, I think the Rangers. And in the West, I think Vancouver will take the first spot, Nashville the second, and then if either one of those teams mates or misses, I'm going to say Winnipeg, I guess. It's close between Winnipeg and Minnesota. But, yeah, so those are my choices. Josiah, why don't you take over?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with most of those picks, especially on the East. The Rangers getting in, it kind of surprised the Islanders, because early on in the year, they had the highest point percentage in the league, even though they were only in 4th, because they had played so less games. But they kind of really, I guess they leveled off, and now they're out of the playoffs. I mean, the players would probably even be surprised. They're like, what happened to us, Because, we were, one of the best teams in the league, and then all of a sudden we start losing a bunch, and now we're, not going to be fighting for a playoff spot. So that just got to kind of suck for them, But, yeah, the Rangers, their offense, they've got at least Zibanejad and Panarin.
So you're starting in the East, right? So you're starting in the East?
Yeah.
So just Just to remind you quickly, Josiah, so we got Columbus, Carolina in the wildcard spot currently, the 2 New York teams, and Florida.
Yeah.
In that order.
Anyways, Zibanejad and Panera, but they're playing on separate lines, and their numbers are very impressive. Now, Zibanejad, he's averaging like 1.31 points per game, and he has 39 goals. But he's played like only 55 games, so that's like, if he had played all 15 of those games, we could have had like a 50-goal scorer already, leading the NHL in points. Not in points, sorry, in goals. So he's not a guy he's a great guy. I mean, last year he got 75 points, and this year in just 55 games, he has 72. So what do you think about that? He's doing a lot better than last year.
Right.
Like I mentioned, he scored 5 goals against, I think, like the Islanders or Philly or something. Anyways. But yeah, I think I agree with your 2 picks on that side.
So Carolina and Columbus?
Yeah, I just don't know about what's going to happen with the Islanders. If they can pick up their slack, they could maybe find themselves a playoff spot. The Rangers, maybe, but I almost wonder if it's too far gone. They waited too long to start to be a really good team.
Right.
But maybe they do make the playoffs.
But
I
I can counter that with maybe the Islanders have waited to have done one too many games losing.
That could be, but like you said, they're still tied for a wild card spot. So
Right, but Carolina owns it. They have way better numbers and they have a better team.
yeah, that's true. But actually all 4 of those teams, are they in the same division? Yeah, they are.
Yep.
So
Yeah, the Atlantic is not factoring in too much with this. The only team that really has a chance in the Atlantic is Florida, and I mentioned them as I didn't talk about the Islanders and the Panthers too much, but if one of those 2 teams was, if I had to choose between one of those 2 teams, I'd choose the Islanders.
yeah.
So, okay, so Carolina and Columbus are your pits in the East, just like mine.
In the podcast.
So your
Yeah.
So my picks in the West were Vancouver and Nashville. So the teams in contention are Minnesota, Vancouver, Nashville, Winnipeg, and Arizona, in that order. So who do you think's going to make it?
I think maybe, Minnesota probably drops off. Who have they got in it? Alex Stalock and Devin Dubnyk, right?
Right?
That's not great goaltending. Maybe their goaltenders have been going through a hot streak. Not 100% sure what they've been doing. They've just been doing great lately, so they've found themselves. But if those goaltenders really aren't going to keep doing insane, so you can't count on them to make the playoffs, right? Like you said.
Right.
Sorry if you're a Minnesota fan, but I just don't think that this is the year. And they were sellers at the trade deadline, right? They gave up Zucker, so
Yeah.
does that come back to bite them? I don't know.
Oh, just a crazy stat I just found out. It has nothing to do with this conversation, but Detroit is 5-26-3 on the road this year.
Uh-huh.
Just wanted to point that out to fans who are still fans of Detroit.
Oh, and also, just so you know, Detroit was, a week ago already, was eliminated from the playoffs, mathematically.
They were mathematically eliminated quite a while ago. They only have 39 points, dude.
Yeah, that's, teams that are terrible, like Ottawa, are, 13 points ahead of them, so Detroit
Ottawa is, they are 23 points ahead of Detroit.
20, okay. Even more. Anyways.
Okay, so Minnesota you think is out. So you were talking very high of Winnipeg. Do you still think they're gonna make it?
I mean, I like Winnipeg. They're not my favorite team, but I like them. And yes, they.
Oh, bias.
I love looking.
Bias here.
Mine is.
Bias. You just said you liked them.
It's the names.
Hey, you're calling me on a bias. I can do it to you.
Yeah, maybe I'm being biased right now, but Winnipeg, like you said, Hellebuyck, superb goaltending. That's absolutely awesome. And when you said atrocious goaltending for Nashville, I don't even think that was an exaggeration because both goaltenders are, like, I think below the 900 save percentage mark. One might be, like, right on the 900 save percentage mark, but that's terrible.
No, I corrected that, though. I didn't, like... Anyway, never mind. So you think Winnipeg takes one of the spots, right?
I mean, Winnipeg probably, and Vancouver. I don't think Nashville, just because of their goaltending, unless Granlund is to step it up and start doing what the Granlund we used to know did, and the goaltenders start being like the goaltenders they're supposed to be.
Or Forsberg comes back, he lights the world on fire.
Yeah, he just does like 10 lacrosse goals in a row or something.
Or one of the goalies just pits it up.
Yeah, but
you can't rely on that though.
Like, you know, their decor has they've always had a number one D-man. Because if you even go back, they had Weber and Yoshi at the same time. Those guys were both number one D-men. Then they had Subban. This was before Subban, of course, started to plummet. His name was he's not considered one of the top defensemen in the league anymore. Right?
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason, though, for his numbers is he's playing on a team that, I mean, they're not the worst team in the league, but they're definitely one of the worst teams in the league.
Okay.
But yeah, that would not look pretty on his numbers.
Okay,
and, he's probably, I mean, he's older. He's like, what, 33? He's been around for a while. I think he's more of a physical defenseman. It's starting to catch up with him. So his numbers are going to plummet. I mean, I don't know about anybody who might be listening, but
so
honestly,
what are your pits? What are your pits then?
I don't think Subban is going to suddenly go back to being the 50-point solid blue liner that we used to know he could be.
Okay,
Anyways,
so what are your picks?
my picks, I'm going to go with Vancouver and Winnipeg.
Markstrom and Bessa are both supposed to be back before the playoffs.
Vancouver gets the number one spot. Gets the number two spot. In the West,
that is the
I'm
West.
going to agree with you with Columbus and Carolina. And I'm not sure, though, who gets the number one spot over there. Anyways, what goaltenders do you trust in the playoffs?
Okay, so just a quick reminder, you said in the West, Carolina and Columbus, but that's East.
Sorry, yeah, East. Sorry.
Okay, and then I just wanted to quickly point out, I think Vancouver, another reason why I think Vancouver is going to make it is because Markstrom and Besser are both supposed to be back by then, or before the playoffs.
That's true. Those are two of their key guys.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if the team was doing even okay right now, you would think, think about how much better they're going to be. They're doing that good right now. So can just those two guys alone carry their teams back, or does their team get their act together before those two guys come back? But if the team continues to be like that, and Wade still tries to rely on Markstrom coming back, like 14 games left to play, Markstrom might not be back for another 6 games. What are you expecting, an 8-game winning streak out of Markstrom?
Yeah, exactly. But, okay, so we've talked a lot about the wildcard spot, so let's move on to which goalies we would trust, or which goalie we would trust most in the playoffs and why. So, Josiah, do you want to go first?
Me personally, I don't actually have a solid pick, but like some names that you might throw around. Bennington could be a good solid pick. You know, he did it last year. He hasn't been the same goaltender he was last year in the regular season, obviously, but he's still been a solid goaltender. I mean, he won the goaltender event in the All-Star game. Anyways, but yeah, he could be a solid one. Hellebuyck has been solid before in the playoffs. I know last year he maybe wasn't the best, but maybe he's like, hey, I kind of just help my team get to the playoffs, and without me, my team would have been a lot worse off than they are now. I'm going to continue to carry them and I want to go for a cup run. I don't think they're not going to go for. I don't think they're going to go for a cup run. First round, maybe they can make it past the first round to the second round, but I really don't think they're going to make it far unless, of course, Hellebuyck posts even better numbers than he's doing now, and he's doing world-class goaltending now, so you can't expect a whole lot more of him.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, like I said, that I like their top line of, I think it was Wheeler, Scheifele, and Connor, so honestly, the names on that line mean a lot. Wheeler hasn't been doing as good as he usually is. He's right about the point per game pace, so he's not going to get another 90-point year. But he still is a good, solid player. Connor's having the best year of his career, and Scheifele's just being Scheifele. He's a great all-around player and can score a game.
Josiah, we're talking about goalies.
Yeah, fair enough. Sorry. But anyway, yeah, Hellebuyck is a good one to trust. Binnington. Lundqvist is probably past his prime, so I don't think he would be a guy you would trust in the playoffs necessarily. Tuukka Rask, they did make it to the final last year. Tuukka Rask is a potential Vezina winner. His numbers have been amazing this year. He's one of the best goaltenders in the league right now, with like a .929 save percentage or something. And
Okay.
Boston has the best goals against average in the league, or something, I think. At least they did a few weeks ago. But yeah, those would be probably. Vasilevsky. It depends. He seems to be a little streaky at times.
Yeah,
He's
and
amazing and not let anything pass him. Just let everything that comes his way past.
he's also prone to getting tired as the year goes by too.
Yeah, like earlier on the year, he had like a 10-game winning streak going, and then the Lightning had like a 10-game winning streak followed by an 11-game winning streak with only an OT loss in between that. And then they're 4-5-1 in their last 10. So to trust Vasilevsky in the playoffs as their team, we've got to see more consistency out of them.
You also gotta
Goes insane and then goes terrible and then plummets.
you also have to be able to trust the Lightning too. That's another thing.
Yeah, like last year. What did they think they were going to do? This is the Stanley Cup playoffs. What do you think you're going to do? Waltz right in there and win the cup because you show up? What did they think Toronto was going to do?
That's kind of what they were. That's kind of what they were told.
Because we're going to lose.
That's kind of.
They came out there, and Columbus played good hockey, and they swept the Lightning, who weren't playing their best. So, what more can you say?
I personally think though that the Lightning were told that they could just waltz through the playoffs. They were told by everyone.
But yeah, it's just kind of hard. I can't imagine you can only imagine what those players did to themselves after this playoff series, though.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay, so what's your choice?
I want to say Hellebuyck, but I almost feel like that would be being a little bit biased by saying that.
No, it wouldn't be because Hellebuck's been a great goalie this year, so you could say him.
Yeah, I guess. I think I'll go with Hellebuyck.
Okay.
If his team can start scoring, even if the defense isn't solid, and Hellebuyck, they could make it to, second or third round of the playoffs and do good.
Yeah. My picks. I thought about all the names you said except Lundqvist. I thought of Binnington, I thought of Rask, and I thought of Hellebuyck. Binnington was going to be my first choice, and then it was going to be Rask, but you shot both those names down, and I don't want to be, boring, So if I were to say a name besides those two, I'm going to throw out a name you either forgot to mention or you just didn't believe in, Matt Murray.
I thought a little bit on Pittsburgh. I didn't bother mentioning anything. Oh, and just Tristan Jarry. I know he hasn't been doing as great lately, but his run through for a while there was sort of like Binnington's run, right?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, so I think Murray and then Holtby too. I think more of Murray though a little bit because Murray has been a little better than Holtby this year. I don't know why Holtby made it to the All-Star game. I don't think he should have, but anyway. And then also just so you know, Binnington is on pace for 58 games, 36 wins, 14 losses, and a 2.57 goals against average and a .911 save percentage. You asked earlier, so I looked it up. So Binnington would have been my first choice, followed by Rask, just because of how clutch they've proven to be, especially last year. And Rask also has that Stanley Cup experience, as much as I hate to say it. So Murray has just been a very clutch goalie. I'll look up his stats quickly. He's been, especially in the 2 years the Penguins won the Cup. He was just he was amazing, you know.
Murray has done it.
I got to Murray due to I was thinking of Fleury, and then I was like, well, what about Murray, you know? Because Murray's been really good in the playoffs. So he's on pace for 23 wins, 13 losses, 2.89 goals against average, and a .898 save percentage. So not great by any means.
That's pretty.
But he's proven to be a clutch goalie. In the playoffs, how well has he done in the playoffs? Oh, it doesn't show playoff. Oh, nice. That's swell. But
He did. Well, I can start you off for one thing. They went back when they won the Cup in 16-17. It was Murray who anchored them, you know?
yeah, so
that solid goaltending that helped them be able to win the Cup.
yeah, I mean, here's the deal with him is that I just think Murray's just he's proven to be a very clutch goalie the past 2 years. Without him, or not the last 2 years, the 2 years where the Penguins won the Cup, because without Murray, the Penguins wouldn't have a cup at all, I believe.
I mean, well, they won the Cup back in 08 or
okay,
09.
they wouldn't have won the 16 or 17 Cup. Sorry, because. Fleury did great in 2008, but heading into 2016, he was a goalie that had proven that he could not get it done in the playoffs. The past few years since 2008, and
I think it was actually 09.
No.
Well, maybe
It was 08.
Whenever Detroit last made I don't know.
So
Just a little fun fact: Detroit made the playoffs for 22 years in a row, and now they've missed the playoffs for 3 years in a row.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay, so that's why I think Murray could do it. Holtby is really the same thing. I just think he's not gonna start. He'll probably start. I think they're gonna do a similar thing with Holtby with Samsonov as they did with Grubauer. They'll start him the first 2 games like they did Grubauer. Grubauer sucked in those first 2 games the year that the Capitals won the Cup, which is why they went to Holtby, and Holtby was great the rest of the year, or the rest of the playoff run. But I think they'll do the same thing with Samsonov. They'll start him off in the playoff run, and if he doesn't do well, then they'll bring Holtby in. But if Samsonov can prove in the playoffs, if he can get hot and he can make those saves, they're not going to start him, period. Meanwhile, I think in Pittsburgh, as good as Jari has been, not taking anything away from Jari here, he's been great.
No, yeah, he's been good.
But I think Washington is more likely to start Samsonov than Pittsburgh is to start Jari in the playoffs. I think Murray will get this.
Who do you think is your number 1 pick for the best goaltender?
Okay, so the goalie I would pick, as I said before, I think I would do Rask, actually, and then Binnington, and then Murray, and then Holtby. I was just mentioning Murray and Holtby because you already talked about Binnington and Rask, so I didn't want to...
You don't believe in Hellebuyck, then?
Actually, yeah, I forgot about Hellebuyck. Hellebuyck would be behind Rask and Binnington, though. So we've established, I guess, that Binnington and Rask are our choices, so... It's not coincidental that those two goalies were in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, because that gives them that experience too. And then
well, my pick wasn't them, but I think they would be like around my number 2 and 3. And I personally like Bennington, mostly because he was born in the same place as Connor McDavid.
well, it's also not a coincidence that these goalies have all been to the conference final. Like Hellebuyck has been to the conference final. Holtby, Murray, and Binnington have, and Rast, for that matter, have all won a cup. So, and all of them except Holtby have been to multiple cup finals. Oh no, not Binnington. So Murray and Rast. So, like playoff experience will earn you that because it just proves that you can play clutch. All of these goalies have played well in playoffs, right? So, all right. So now we're gonna move on to the Pacific Division and who we think is going to, how that's gonna play out because that's been the craziest division this year. I think the best division.
It was a lot more crazy though earlier on in the year. Now Edmonton and Vegas have kind of established themselves.
Actually, I think we should ban this out quickly, and then we could quickly talk about all 4 divisions. So I think that in the Pacific is also the worst division in hockey. Like Vegas leads that division with 84 points, and then the other 3 divisions, their leaders have more points than that by at least 5. So yeah. Pacific, Vegas, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver will make it, in my opinion.
I can agree with that.
Arizona will miss. In the Central, St. Louis, Colorado, Dallas, and I think Nashville will make it. So I put 4 apiece for each division. Any objections?
The Nashville. I would take Nashville. I'll put Winnipeg in that spot. But
right. Yeah. Yeah, you did say that. And then also, I think the Central is the toughest division because the last place team in that division is Chicago, and Chicago still actually has a shot at the playoffs.
Yes.
So all of the Central teams have a shot. Metro might even be ahead of the Central because the Rangers, as I talked about, I think they have a shot at the wildcard spot. They are 7th out of 8 teams in the Metro. So that just shows how deep.
New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey's the worst. They're the only team that doesn't have a shot, really. So that's no.
The team like the Pacific Division. I mean, they're not a great team, but they could easily have gotten.
In the Pacific Division, they would only be ahead of the 3 California teams: Anaheim, San Jose, and LA, and none of those teams were good. So that's not exactly something to brag about.
No, I mean, if they were in that division, they would be. Anyways, that doesn't matter.
I think in the Metro easily. Okay, so yeah, in the Metro, I think Washington and Philly will make it, who both have 89 points as we stand. And then Pittsburgh, Carolina, and Columbus in that order to round out the rest of the Metro. 4 teams in that division have at least 80 points. Columbus, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Washington in reverse order. And then in the Atlantic, I think quickly Boston, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. So any objections to that pick or to those picks?
No, I mean, with the Atlantic, it's kind of like 3 no-brainer picks because Florida is probably not going to make it unless Bobrovsky can suddenly turn on his light. But I mean, they're kind of overpaying Bobrovsky. He's getting paid like $10 million.
Okay, stay on topic.
Anyways.
Okay, so if there aren't any objections, so what do you think is the weakest and what do you think is the strongest division in hockey?
Like you said, it's the weakest division. Well, in terms of stats, is the Pacific.
Right.
Now, we could have a little bit of a different story. You know. The strongest division in terms of stats is the Metro.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that a different story? I mean, you don't really take anything
in the playoffs, Washington, Philly, and Pittsburgh all have a chance, but I think in terms of high-end star power, it's the Atlantic. In terms of weakest, Pacific. In terms of strongest, I think the Metro with a close second being the Central. And I think the most competitive No, I think the most competitive is still the Metro. So overall, I think the strongest division is the Metro, weakest Pacific, and the most high end is the Atlantic.
In terms of high-end stars?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no,
Away from the
high end teams. Because if you think about it, look, Boston, Tampa Bay, Toronto, and then I guess Florida, and then there's like a 5-point drop off, and then you drop off to another 5 points, and then 4 points, and then 21 points from Ottawa to Detroit. So really, like
Detroit.
so
Detroit.
it really drains down. That's why I think like in terms of teams, it's high end.
Yes.
Okay, so and then just to throw that out there, Boston. Well, not to throw it out there, but just to quickly. So Boston is first in the lead with 98 points. Tampa Bay and St. Louis are tied for second. And then Colorado, I think, is fourth. Yeah, Colorado's fourth.
Yeah, Colorado's fourth.
And then Washington and Philly are tied for fifth. So, yeah, those are the top 5 teams in the league. Okay, and then one last thing about this. I was coming across a hockey story while I was reading a book, and I was telling it to Josiah, and I think we should mention it on the podcast. What do you think, Josiah?
Yeah, I mean, the story about Doug Harvey.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, so if you don't know, Doug Harvey was a really talented defenseman from like the 40s to the 50s. He was one of the first defensemen to actually really play well offensively. Bobby Orr was the one that made it popular, but Doug Harvey was one of the first to do it, along with Eddie Shore and King Clancy. I will actually make a all-decade team for every era, and I will post a video for that soon, so keep watch for that on YouTube. My channel is Pedersen #40, although you probably know that, because this will be on my channel as you watch it. Or listen to it, I guess. Anyway, so the story was Doug Harvey and his Montreal Canadiens team were a great NHL team. Meanwhile, the Sudbury Wolves, currently an OHL team led by Quinton Byfield, who is a 2020 draft hopeful, a really talented player. So they were at this time they were touring around the world, playing different teams, and now they were playing the Montreal Canadiens. They're also one of the first teams to have a mascot, which is really cool. And they obviously had a wolf, and he would run around the arena every time the wolf scored. So in the game, as the game was nearing an end, the Canadiens were up like something crazy, like 8-11 nothing, somewhere around that. And Doug Harvey wanted to see the mascot, so when he went on the ice, he took the puck and he put it in his own net. Just so he could see the mascot. When he got back to the bench, Punch Imlach, who was the coach for that team at the time, he was really mad at Harvey for it, because he was the kind of guy that didn't want to be scored on under any circumstance, so he was obviously really upset that Harvey had put it in his own net. And Harvey was just like, the only thing he responded with was, "Come on, dude, it was worth it just to see the wolf run around." Yeah, so I think we'll start a new thing here. If it's okay with Josiah, we'll talk about a hockey story in every podcast. We'll tell it to you, whether it's Josiah that finds it or me. I got that story from a book called Hockey Stories On and Off the Ice. It was made in 2001, so you can check that out online if you want. So, unless there's anything else, Josiah?
Well, I mean, speaking of hockey stories, I've got one, but I guess we'll save it for the next podcast. So it's not really a story, it's more of just like something nice that a couple nice things that some players did.
Okay, why don't you quickly tell our listeners then?
I heard a story about how PK Subban gave like $10 million to a children's hospital.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool, right? To see, because the NHL players kind of get paid a lot of money, and they don't. What are they going to do with all that money unless they're saving it for retirement? But even then.
Even then, most hockey players make enough in 1 year to last like at least 5 years, and that's just like rookie salary. So,
I lasting them 5 years. If it was to last them 5 years, that would be living fairly well off. Anyways.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And another one is OV gave, it wasn't supposed to be like a public thing or anything, but OV gave his to a homeless person, and it's Ovi, and he's pretty rich, so it was probably a pretty nice jacket. Anyways, and somebody caught it on video.
Yeah?
That's just kind of cool. Anyways.
Yeah, so that's it for the... Oh, and just so you know, Subban did that back in, I think it was 2016, like the year before he was traded to Nashville, back when he was in Montreal. So, that's all for this Weeds podcast, guys. I hope you liked it. This was our first episode, so if you have any stuff you want to tell us on how to improve the podcast, let us know. We hope you enjoyed the J&J Hockey Podcast. Signing off for now is Joshua and Josiah. Bye-bye, guys.